the witness, the members of the entourage and forcing them on the ground, lay on the ground, didn't make them necessarily amenable to talking to the police about it.
Well, what I was told by some of the members was the way they were treated by the police. I guess I can understand their feelings, but there's also the flip side to that, in that at the time all this is going on, the officers responding had no clue what was happening. Who was the good guy, who was the bad guy, and they dealt with the situation as a felony crime in progress, possibly these being the suspects. So I'm sure things were a little harsh at that time. When I got there, again, I'm there much later, I'm just trying to get some information out of people, and they didn't seem too receptive to talk to me. There were people that talked to me, but they weren't totally forthcoming with the information at that time.
No leads or suspects were given at that time.
It was pretty weak at that time because the majority of the people weren't really wanting to talk to us. I know that there were some reasons behind that, and that probably slowed things down a bit. The day after, right off the bat, we're wanting to talk to the guy that's in the car with Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, and we're working right away with that. And in fact, the night of the shooting, we tried to talk to him, but were refused access to him by the members of Death Row, attorneys. And in fact, it took 3 days to get to talk to Suge Knight.
After the shooting, the night after the shooting, I was in my hotel room. I got a phone call from Reggie telling me to come over to Suge's house. I go over to Suge's house, and everyone is there. Everyone is there, and everybody's tripping. There's not a whole lot of conversation going on, but everybody is just like in disbelief that it happened. Suge, eventually called me into his office at his house, and he goes, "Frank, I want to talk to you." I go into the office with him, and we're talking, and he goes, "Frank, what happened?" And I was like, "Suge." I go, "First, why did we go down the strip when it was so crowded?" I go, "I would have turned on Tropicana and went the back way." And he said, "Yeah, I know that way too." He goes, "But I wanted to go the other way. I have to follow him, so I can't turn and lose him." That was our conversation, and we just basically went over everything that had happened, how it happened, and what I had seen, and what he knew, and the events. We reacted the events with one another in private.
I started digging deeper because it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like a regular homicide investigation. I've been to lots of homicide scenes. I've covered lots of crimes, and it just didn't feel like an active investigation, and as we know now, it really doesn't appear as if it was. There were lots of people who weren't interviewed. There were lots of sort of, I don't know if you call them mistakes, but sort of decisions that were made at the time that didn't lend to gathering very much evidence. So. And
what mistakes are those?
Well, I think there were some decisions that were made, like the bicycle cops and the decision to leave the scene of the crime. They took off, they left the scene of the crime. There were basically two scenes, one where they were shot, where Tupac was shot and Suge was shot, and the scene where the car ended up, the car they were in. But the scene with witnesses, and who knows who was there and left, that scene was not secure for 20 minutes. So all the spent bullets, the cars, everything, witnesses, gone and driven over and walked over and whatever else, and it was
On September the 12th, I had flown home actually about the 11th. I went home. I told Reggie I needed to go home because I needed a change of clothes. I needed clothes because we were going to be there for the rest of the week. So Reggie said, okay, go ahead. We'll get your flight out, and he goes, come back tomorrow. And I said, that's no problem. I said, I just need to go home and get some clothes and get some more stuff. So he goes, okay, no problem. I went home, prepared myself, got everything I needed. The next day comes, it's September the 12th. I go to my hotel room, I check in, I tell Reggie I'm back. Reggie says, okay, stick around because Suge is going to want to see you tonight. I said, okay. So, I just hung out that day. The nighttime comes, I get a phone call. Reggie goes, be at Suge's at 9 o'clock. I go, okay. I go over to Suge's house. It's 9 o'clock at night, September the 12th. And no one was there. It was just Reggie and Suge. Reggie meets me at the front door, and he goes, hey, Suge is really upset. He goes, he's really hot-tempered right now. He goes, if he says something to you or something like that, don't worry about it. He probably really doesn't mean it. I was like, all right. I said, I'm cool. So we go, and he goes, we're going to go out by the pool. I said, okay. We go sit down by the pool.
Now, this is the infamous red pool.
It wasn't red. The pool had the Death Row emblem painted on the bottom of the pool, which had recently been done, and the light shining on it was a red light, and the bottom of the pool was red, basically. And Suge is sitting with his back to the pool. I'm facing him, so I'm looking directly at the pool. Reggie is sitting to my right. Suge starts talking to me. He was like, Frank, the detectives are going to want to talk to you tomorrow. They're going to want to talk to you, blase, blase. He goes, just remember everything that happened, and just let them know, basically. So I'm like, all right, So we talked a little bit more conversation, and then he says to me, he goes, I know you loved Pop. I said, yeah. He goes, I loved him too. I was like, I know. He was like, this is just bad. He goes, it's bad. I go, I know. That conversation and that meeting was way different from the night of the shooting to the next day when I met him at his house. So now I'm thinking what's going on? I started feeling kind of strange. I had an eeriness come through my whole body right there.
Gangster rap star Tupac Shakur underwent a third operation last night to correct internal complications stemming from the drive-by shooting. He remains in the intensive care unit at University Medical Center in Las Vegas.
He is severely injured internally. He has multiple gunshot wounds to the chest.
5-year-old rapper was in the backseat of a black BMW, part of an informal convoy of 10 cars, when Las Vegas police say shots were fired from a passing white Cadillac. Yesterday, the Reverend Jesse Jackson arrived and said a prayer at Shakur's bedside. We've been informed that doctors have told the family members that they expect the rap star to once again recover from his injuries. Conan Nolan for NBC News, Las Vegas.
The next day is September the 13th, okay? September the 13th, 1996 fell on a Friday. My shift started with Tupac at 8 o'clock that morning. Prior to my shift starting, Reggie told me to stay away from the family. He goes, they're really angry at you. I go, why are they angry at me? He goes, because, her son is laying up in the hospital dying. And I'm thinking, okay, right? So now I'm thinking I can't talk to Yasmin, who was Tupac's assistant at Euthanasia, and I can't talk to, we called her Mama Shakur. I couldn't talk to Afeni. So now I'm thinking, oh, great, right? So basically, that whole day was trying to avoid them. Ironically, when Reggie had told me that before I had gotten to the hospital, I pull up, a van pulls up behind me, and it's Afeni and her sister, Gloria. They get out, and they walk into the hospital. I let them go in front of me. They go toward the back. I walk right behind them, and I go in there. I, relieve the other guy that was on, and Pac's still landing there, right? I'm sitting there in the chair outside the room, and Afeni and her sister, they're standing inside there with Pac, looking at him. Then a doctor comes, which was his doctor. The doctor comes and goes into the room with Tupac and Afeni and Gloria, and they go out of the room into the room right next door. And the door is open, and as they're sitting down. The doctor sits down, Afeni or either Glow, one of them, they sat on the floor, and the other one was sitting next to the doctor, and they're talking. And I'm watching them the whole time, right? And I see the facial expressions, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm sitting there, man, and I'm just like falling apart inside. Then Afeni walks out, and she sat down next to me. And when she sat next to me, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. She sat next to me, and I put my hand on her hand, and she said, "It's okay, Frank." That was the last time that I spoke to her. Little did I know, Pac was dying, and she had gotten this news to make a decision. The day goes on. There's a zillion people coming by to see Tupac. Actually, Snoop came that day. Snoop came, and my other homeboys was with him, Marcus and Kenneth, and a lot of celebrities, a lot of people showing up, right? So my shift is getting close to ending. It's probably about 3 o'clock. The next two guys came on, and I'm just like hanging around the hospital a little bit, and I get a phone call, and it's Reggie. And Reggie says, "Get over to Suge's now, right now." Then all of a sudden, my pager starts blowing up. I'm getting 50 phone calls from people from death row saying, "Get to Suge, hurry up, it's an emergency, get to Suge. Suge needs you right now. It's a meeting, get there." So finally, and then I get a phone call from my homeboy Larry. And then I go over to Suge's, I get there, Reggie meets me outside. There's a zillion cars at Suge's driveway, right? Reggie meets me outside, and he goes, "Look," he goes, "I don't know what's gonna happen." He goes, "But just go along with it and be real cool about it." He goes, "I'm right here." He goes, "It's bad, it's real bad." So now at this point, I'm like crying on the inside, like, what? So I go sit down again at the pool, but this time there's several people at the table. There's Suge, David Kenner, his attorney. There was another gentleman, I don't remember his name, and then two of Suge's homeboys, and then Reggie. And Reggie basically is standing behind me, right? And I'm sitting next to Suge, and I do mean next to Suge, right? And Suge is hot. He's mad. And little did I know that Tupac was dying, and this is the reason for this atmosphere right now. Suge is asking me all kind of questions about what happened, security, where was your gun, security this and security that. And I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling like, oh shit, I'm taking the heat. So I look at Reggie like, these are security questions. You need to answer these questions. So Reggie wasn't answering them. So I said, Suge, I go, I don't own Right Way Security. I work for Reggie. I go, there should have been more security with us. I go, I had already asked you and told you that we needed more bodyguards on Pac. I go, I asked for more security. I go, he goes, well, what happened to Michael Moore? He was with you that day. I said, he was called to go back over to 662. And every answer I gave Suge was answers that Reggie should have been giving Suge, or Suge should have known. So then Suge says to me, he goes, no, I'm sorry, he says to Reggie, he goes, Reg, he goes, what's up? What was the breakdown in security? And Reggie was like, and Al was a supervisor, and now here's the finger being pointed again. So I'm sitting there still, and then all of a sudden the phone rings, right? Suge gets the phone, he had the phone, he answers the phone, and he stands up, and he throws the phone, bang, right across the table, right? I'm like, oh shit. I looked at the pool and I go, I'm going for a swim. That's just how I felt. He turns around and he says, can nobody fucking save him now? And he's in tears, right? And he goes, he just died. And I just start crying, right? As I'm crying, and I'm just like, Suge walks away, everybody at the table just gets up and everybody walks away. Reggie looks at me and he goes, go pack your shit, get out of Vegas. And I'm thinking, why?
Shakur's heart and respiratory system simply were overtaxed by the devastating gunshot wounds he suffered in a bold ambush a week ago. Word of his death brought legions of followers. Police have yet to identify any suspects, and now Shakur has died before detectives could even try to speak to him.
Showed my respect for Tupac. My brother was a good brother.
His words really give us strength to keep on moving and look forward to another day.
A lot of people's touched by it, not just rap music artists, listeners, lovers, but a lot of people, older people, is touched by this. It's a sad situation.
They came early and stayed late in Harlem, even in the rain, to remember Tupac Shakur and to promote peace in a rap world of violence.
We here to say, well, let's make a turn from the bad to the good.
A lot of negativity out here, and the violence is going to take more than just Tupac's death to stop. I still don't think people's going to learn from it. I still think a lot of stuff is going to go on, a lot of killing, a lot of violence still. They're not going to learn nothing.
It's a cold, cold day in the rap, hip-hop music world. In case you haven't heard, it's been all over the media, all over the news, all over the radio. Rapper Tupac Shakur has passed away.
I would like to say condolences to Tupac's family.
I think he was a great person. I learned a lot about him by reading about him and everything, and he did a lot of good stuff for his community.
Let's go for another one, high KCEP.
A lot of our young brothers out there would start to get along a little bit better and stop coming up with the old adage when one looked at the other one that he's mad dogging me. And we would live a happier life, and things like this wouldn't have to happen.
All right, sir, that's well put, and of course, we thank you for taking time out of your busy afternoon to call us and share that knowledge with us.
That's very good, and my condolences does go out to Tupac's family.
I was calling to find out if did Tupac die?
He passed over an hour ago.
Calls about Tupac Shakur came to V103 within an hour of his death.
Is this really dead?
Yep.
DJs Greg Street and Sean Hudson call it an obvious loss to the rap industry.
It was a bad situation. I think he really got caught up into something that wasn't probably directed at him. But, it was just, something that happened.
I mean, I think that if he could have been able to continue with where he was going, I think you'd have seen a side of Tupac that, the people, he was going to grow to another level that he hadn't been at.
I start calling people, right? They're saying, dude, go get your shit, get out of Vegas, leave. I go, I can't even drive back to the car. Go. So he died. That was it. He died.
I mean, eulogy was the characteristic mode of his rap career, especially near the end when he's speaking about if I die tonight, how many brothers fell victim to the street. And, you know, death, I see death around the corner. All of these issues. But death was always linked to him in his own rhetoric to suffering. So for him, the rhetorical acknowledgement of death was always linked to its acknowledgement as a form of suffering. And why does God allow death and destruction to occur? If you listen to Unconditional Love, he says, asking his mama why he has this urge to die. And I think that it was because of the extraordinary pain that he endured. The abandonment of his mother and father, the desultory, peripatetic, that is, moving around, domestic life that he had where he was homeless. By the time he was in junior high in New York, in the ghettos of the Harlem and Manhattan and the Bronx, he had moved 22 times. He was at first not a gangster or a thug, but an artsy, kind of bohemian rapper. And all of this caused him enormous difficulty because of his poetic gift. People laughed at him, or his clothes, because he didn't have many, laughed at him. And I think he endured an enormous amount of psychic and social suffering. And it came out in his music, and it came out with his rush to the grave, which was striking in one so young. There was a kind of complete denial of the possibility of hope. He proclaimed time and again, young, strapped, and don't give an F, hopeless, I'm hopeless. And that was his life.
People love to, you know, have mercy and sympathy for everything, from the animals to the whales to fur to everything except us, your youth, the ones who give no attention to, who become adults with no compassion. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you walk by a street and you was walking on concrete and you saw a rose growing out of concrete, even if it had messed up petals and it was a little, you know, to the side, you would marvel at just seeing a rose grow through concrete. So why is it that when you see some ghetto kid grow out of all of the dirtiest circumstances, and he can talk and he can sit across from you, make you smile, make you cry, make you laugh, all you can talk about is my dirty rose, my dirty stems, and how I'm leaning crooked to the side. You can't even see that I came up out of that.
Well, I think initially the sense I got in talking to different people was that people weren't talking. You know, and the police, they were putting out a little bit of information, and their thing was, well, no one would cooperate, no one would cooperate, no one would cooperate. You know, well, police don't end an investigation because nobody cooperates. You know, they continue. But Orlando Anderson, I think that was a little odd, that Orlando Anderson was taken into custody, and then, you know, I mean, he was actually questioned at the MGM Grand and decided to leave, and that should have been a red flag right there. And then he was taken into custody later and released, and they said, well, we don't have enough evidence.
Do you know about what time Orlando was released by the MGM security?
It was about I believe it was about 2.5 hours before the shooting. And also Orlando's reasons, and I got this from the cops and a couple of other different people, was Orlando Anderson gave several different reasons for why he was in Las Vegas. Number one, he said he was here for the fight. Then he said he bought tickets. Well, he came to town, he didn't have tickets, but he bought tickets. Well, that's almost impossible. And if so, he would have had to have $2,000 to get scalp tickets. So he didn't go to the fight, so he wasn't here for the fight. Then he told the police, well, he was here to gamble. He had driven in with his girlfriend. He was very inconsistent as to why he was in town to begin with. I think that's a red flag right there. And where was he during the shooting? I mean, he didn't have an alibi.
It began before dawn. The crime sweep involved 300 officers, 10 agencies, including the FBI, at more than 37 locations in the Compton, Linwood, and Long Beach areas. Compton police say the arrests were for local crimes in connection with 12 shootings that occurred in the city of Compton that resulted in 3 deaths. But officers did reveal there could be a link to the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur.
Our investigation revealed that some of the motivation for the shootings that occurred in Compton may be in retaliation for the events that transpired in Las Vegas. But those of you who are familiar with gang activity know that gangs do retaliate for perceived violence against gang members of a particular set. The reason that we targeted the September 7th date is we noticed that we had an increase in gang activity and shootings beginning following that date.
Shakur's car was sprayed with bullets following a boxing match in Las Vegas on September 7th. The rapper died a week later from his bullet wounds. Las Vegas police were on the scene for today's sweep and will be interviewing some of those arrested, including a 22-year-old reputed gang member named Orlando Anderson, who may have been in Las Vegas that night.
Las Vegas Police Department has not announced any suspect in the Tupac Shakur shooting. There is one suspect who was arrested on a homicide which occurred in the city of Compton in April, who they will probably talk to. But as far as that goes, I would refer you to the Las Vegas Police Department for any information regarding the crime that occurred in Las Vegas.
I cannot say that we have pinpointed one particular person. Okay. There are some people, and I can't elaborate as to the names, but there are some people that came up early. There were a lot of names that came up through the course of the investigation. Many of them we could eliminate right away based on the information that was given to us, because we knew there's still some information we know that has not been made public, and it's helped us to eliminate the nonsense that comes in, and unfortunately